welcome back to The Price of Business. I'm your host, Kevin Price, talking to you about you and your businesses. I tell you, one of the biggest businesses out there, of course, is sports, in the NFL. We had a guest on before, and we just really loved having you on the program, and really glad to get Gary Myers back. He's author of How About Them Cowboys. And, of course, Chris Kidd, he's a regular on the program. He reoccurringly we have done frankly, some of the most fascinating interviews on this program have been done with my co-host, Chris Kidd. We've had a lot of fun, and I'm sure this is going to be no exception to that. Chris, a little bit about what you do, a little bit about your website, chriskidd, that's with 2Ds.com.
Yeah, I'm a financial coach, and basically that came about by looking for the next business to do several years ago when I was getting out of some project with some restaurants and had some friends suggest, hey, you've helped us and taught us all this stuff about money and investing, and why don't you teach this stuff? So looked into it, decided that was a good place for me to go. And also, growing up around sports and being a coach's son, I love kind of intertwining things with athletes and, the sports and entertainment realm and working with them. So we know a lot of them need some direction and need somebody they can trust that's not just kind of using them. So I figured that I could solve a big problem by helping people learn about money management, getting out of debt, investing their money better, knowing the right questions to ask, and how to find good people. So that's pretty much what I do in a nutshell. And like you said, they can visit me at chriskiddenterprises.com and find out more.
Gary, welcome back to the program, and I encourage everyone to check out Chris Kidd's website. Gary, a little bit about your book. Kind of give us the elevator speech.
Yeah, I worked at the Dallas Morning News from 1981 to 89, and I was there during the transition from the Landry Schramm era to Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson, and I loved my time in Dallas. It was the most challenging and fun period of my career, and the changeover from the first era to the second era is something, I was there for about the first 4 months of the Jones-Johnson era, and it was just fascinating. I was sitting in on NFL history as Schramm and Landry and Gil Brandt, who had been there for 29 years, were all forced out. But, I wrote a lot about the Cowboys since I moved back to New York in 1989, and I always wanted to do a book about them. And Jerry Jones agreed to sit down with me on several occasions to be interviewed. And I just decided to write a book that touched a little bit on all the different eras of the Cowboys and a lot of the personalities, and tried to, pull back the curtain somewhat on the team that everybody knows as America's team.
Yeah. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, Gary, how did that kind of brings the question to mind? How did the America's team get their name? Who came up with that idea for the Cowboys?
Well, Chris, for the better part of nearly, I guess it's almost 40 years, people have credited NFL Films because that was the title that they gave the Cowboys' 1979 highlight film. One of the producers there, named Bob Ryan, has always been credited with coming up with that title, and then it just caught on. But in doing the research for my book, I was speaking with Greg Aiello, who I knew during my time in Dallas, he was the Cowboys' assistant public relations director, and he told me that Doug Todd, who has since passed away and was the Cowboys' number one public relations director at the time, that he would work in conjunction with Bob Ryan every year on the Cowboys highlight film. And he says that Doug is the one that came up with the name America's Team, to the point that after Doug left the Cowboys, that he would put that on his resume, that he was the originator of the America's Team nickname. Meanwhile, Bob Ryan is so adamant, but in a very nice way, that he was the one who came up with the name, that he said he actually plans for it to be on his tombstone. So
Some super
that's
fan.
a pretty strong conviction, I would say. So it just really, the Cowboys are immensely popular at that period of time, and the nickname just really caught on. There's been many imitators since then who have tried to claim themselves as America's team, but there really is only one.
Interesting. Talk a little bit about the state of the Cowboys today.
They're struggling. They haven't been to a Super Bowl since the 1995 season, and the turning point obviously was when Jerry Jones and Jimmy Johnson could no longer stand the side of each other, and Jimmy left after back-to-back Super Bowls following the 93 season, and then slowly the talent started to dissipate, and there wasn't anybody in Dallas that was really of Jimmy's caliber to replenish the talent. So they've really had a hard time for over 20 years. And this season, they're struggling again. The offense is having a really hard time moving the ball and scoring points. But what benefits them is that the NFC East this year, despite having the defending Super Bowl champion Philadelphia Eagles, that none of the teams after 5 weeks of the season are over 500. So even though the Cowboys are 2-3 after 5 games, they're still very much alive for both winning a division title or getting one of the 2 wild card spots. But this is not by any means a powerhouse Cowboys team this year.
Yeah. Well, that is kind of a positive spin on the situation with the way the NFC East is. Bringing up another point, so can, I guess, kind of a play off of Donald Trump's campaign speech before he was President Trump, can the Cowboys be great again? Or can America, make the Cowboys great again?
Well, I don't know if America can do it, but the Cowboys can do it, but they have to pick the right players and improve the roster. Turnarounds in the NFL these days can be very quick. From one year to the next, you can go from a last place team to winning the division because of free agency in the draft. And the salary cap tends to even things out. So it does run in cycles that teams can be good, and usually the window to be good is 2-3 years, because then a lot of those players' contracts will be up, and if they're the best players, they'll get more money, and it's hard for teams to hold on to all their best players. But the Cowboys are probably only 3 or 4 players away from being on the upper echelon in the league. They need a couple of receivers. They need a tight end. I think it's still uncertain whether they have the right quarterback, but he did win a lot of games, 13 games as a rookie a couple of years ago when he had a lot more pieces around him. So it doesn't, like I said, it doesn't take much to turn it around. You just have to have the right people making the decisions.
Yeah. We've got a very short time left. Can you give your website real quick, and then I'm going to have Chris give you a final question. Give your website real quick.
Well, my book, you can find it on Amazon or on the Hachette website. I don't have my own website. I have my own Twitter, obviously, which is Gary Myers NY.
Gary Myers NY. Chris, final question. About a minute left. So make it quick.
Yeah, so Gary, we all know that a lot of Cowboys fans are a little stressed out with Jerry Jones and some of the decisions. In fact, I own a shirt that says "Jerry makes me drink." Who's going to be next in line for the throne with the Cowboys? What do we have coming up after Jerry, whenever that is?
Yeah, the decision's already been made that each of his 3 children, Stephen, Charlotte, and Jerry Jr., will own 1/3 of the team. And Stephen, being the oldest and also having been with Jerry the longest with the Cowboys, he will have the vote, the Cowboys vote at the league meetings, which is an important responsibility. And I would imagine that he'll be considered the owner of the team because he's been the one that's been most involved on the football side of the operation.
Gary, thanks so much. Gary Myers, he's been on the program before. Check him out at Gary Myers NY. Is that correct?
Yeah, just Gary Myers NY.
At Twitter. And, of course, Chris Kidd, he's a regular. Chris Kidd, KIDD.com. He's a regular on the program. Great interview as usual. Fascinating topic. You know, I don't care what the state of the Cowboys are. We remain interested in them, and your book does a great job of telling their story. All right, got to take a break, but I do want to remind you, of course, this show continues 24/7 at priceofbusiness.com. So many new things going on. We've added a couple of new website partners. You can read about them over there at priceofbusiness.com. And also continued expansion and growth. You can see all of our networks all of our stations rather, over there at priceofbusiness.com. And so continue to grow in our syndication and our reach. And so check it all out at priceofbusiness.com. All right, when we come back, we're going to have more for you. I do want to remind you that you can reach out to me at Twitter at Kevin Price Live, and that's how I get great show ideas. More for you after this.